This is the official Leeds United podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to the official Leeds United podcast with me, Matthew Lewis. I know you've all been starved of news lately. I am very pleased to tell you that today I'm joined by a perhaps familiar name to some of you, albeit in a shiny new role. So please, without further ado, welcome to the show, the new Leeds United chairman, Paraag Marathe. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for having me. It's a long time coming. Excited to finally be here and doing this podcast with you.
We're very excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute roller coaster of, few years actually, but specifically the last few weeks. You've obviously had your hands full getting this takeover over the line. How are you feeling now that it's done?
You know, I'm feeling inspired, probably is the best word to use, because there's just so much work to do. There's so much work to do to obviously get back up in the Premier League, but more deeper than that and bigger than that, just get this club back to where I think it belongs, both on and off the pitch. We want this club to be something that everyone can be proud of, not just players and coaches, but supporters and sponsors and just everyone associated with global football. It's something that is inspiring to me to be able to finally have a chance. And really only as a steward, I'm just carrying the torch on behalf of everybody else. So it's just to finally have a chance to be able to try to do that is really inspiring.
I don't want to go too much into the intricacies of business negotiations, but obviously this one, it took a little while. We've been waiting on a few things. Can you take us through a little bit of what this process has been like and why it took a little bit longer than expected for the last few weeks?
Yeah, certainly. In full transparency, we had everything done and every box checked and ready to do the takeover had we stayed up. And that was going to be a fairly easy handoff, because months and months of work had gone into it at that point to get to that point. Of course, when we got relegated, that opened up a whole new can of worms, and us trying to figure out, how we do this. Obviously, a different league approval, going from the PL to the EFL and going through all of that. And so it just took a little bit of time. And Andrea and I first had to get through our piece. And that took a little bit of time. And then the rest has been just waiting for some of the formalities. I would say that time, just because the approval time and all of those things have taken a little bit longer than we wanted. That doesn't mean that we were slowing the train down for everything we needed to do to get this club ready for that first match. We went through dozens of interviews of first team managers. We went through dozens of interviews of football people who could help us and really feel good about the direction that we're going, and initiated a number of conversations with players. And so we feel really good. Obviously, the announcement of Daniel took a little bit longer than maybe some other clubs, but there was a lot of work that went in behind the scenes before that and prior to that and now during that. So we're catching up fairly quickly.
I mean, obviously, the fans will be thrilled to know that you guys have been working away in the background, and I want to talk about that in a little bit. We'll talk about Daniel Farke and potentially the squad, but before that, I think there would be a great opportunity for the fans to get to know you. Really, you've been at the club now for several years with the 49ers Enterprises as minority shareholders, but you've probably gone under the radar a little bit with many fans. Can you explain a little bit about who you are and what's brought you to this point as our new chairman?
Yeah, certainly. So, it's been an interesting ride the last 5 or 6 years. The best way I can describe it is as I've said in many other media inquiries, I've been a passenger on the bus or a passenger on the plane. And so I haven't really had my chance at the controls, but I've had a firsthand front seat view of how a football club runs. When it came time for me to apply my knowledge, I have a much better understanding of what I want to do, what I don't want to do, the similarities and the differences between American sport and European sport and English football. And so I've learned a lot over that time. I think, as I've said in a lot of the coach and manager interviews that I've done, I think I'm a little bit different. I think I'm different from maybe your typical chairman and owner. And I think I'm different for a couple of reasons. Two main reasons, really. Number one, Unfortunately for me, I guess, I'm not a fifth generation multi-billionaire that is doing this for a hobby or because, I want to play fantasy football and kill some time. In fact, that's quite the opposite of what I am. I sort of made my way on my own, came up in a very middle-class upbringing, and I love sports. I grew up loving sports. I ate the sports page for breakfast. I consumed every word every single morning, and I just love it. That's first and foremost who I am. Is I love competition. I love winning. I love putting a team together and being a part of that team to win. And so, and I do this. I've always had that chip on my shoulder mentality because I'm not doing this as a hobby. This is life for me. I get butterflies in my stomach the night before matches. I can't sit down. In fact, I hate sitting down at Elland Road at matches because I just can't stand it. I have so much energy, kinetic energy, in and about me. But I just think for me, this is not. This is like something that I'm just meant to do because I'm a supporter first. And so that's very different. I think the second thing that differentiates me is that I think I have a particular empathy and understanding of everybody's job at the club because I've done all those jobs, right? 23 years at the 49ers, coming from an unpaid intern to just cutting my teeth in an environment where everybody counted me out, right? I didn't play American football growing up. In fact, I played the other football growing up, but I didn't play American football, so I didn't look the part of an NFL executive. And so certainly, the color of my skin doesn't look the part of what an NFL executive should look either. And so 23 years ago, imagine the criticism and skepticism that I got probably for a decade of people saying I don't belong. But I had many of those jobs. I've been the head negotiator. I still am. I've been the president and chief exec of a team. I've built a stadium. I've hired coaches. I've been through the troughs and I've been through the peaks of mountains, or almost peaks of mountains in sports. And so I've seen it all and I've been through it all. So I have a particular empathy for everybody's job that I think is going to serve me well in this role because, even just take the football negotiations piece. Yeah, okay, it took a long time for us to get approvals. But, to our supporters at Leeds, just know this is my lifeblood. This is my wheelhouse. This is what I do. I've negotiated contracts in my sleep. And so at the 49ers for a long time. And so, to jump in and help lend a hand with players and agents. Yeah. The ball is shaped differently and the sport is different, but the agent game and the player game, it's very much the same. And that's what I made a name for myself in American sports. And so a lot of those same things I'm going to be able to apply. And I think that just differentiates me from any other club's chairman.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's really, really interesting. Actually, there's a few things that you alluded to there that I would love to ask you about. I mean, the 49ers website itself does label you as chief contract negotiator and salary cap architect. Now, obviously, we don't have a salary cap, but there is FFP and various other things to consider. And us being in the championship will mean that perhaps we will have to get imaginative with some of our contracts. Is that something that you're hoping to have a hands-on role at Leeds going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think it serves the club well for me too. I want to be careful here because part of my ethos and what I'm about is also hiring the best possible people and letting them and empowering them to do their jobs. Right. Mm-hmm. So I definitely don't want to. The best chairmen and owners are ones that don't need to talk too much, and so hopefully this is one of only a few that I do, and because we're kicking off. But the best owners, in my mind,
that'll be music to a lot of people's ears. By the way, what you just said there.
Yeah, in my mind, the best chairmen are ones that just lay in the background, lend support where needed, expertise where needed, obviously investment when needed, but let the people do their job and be great at their job. And in fact, if they're not, then find somebody else who is. But yes, I do think, especially now, given this transitional period and given my expertise. It's not just that I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work, but I think I have a particular expertise to be able to help do that and navigate PNS and FFP and all of those things. And the truth is, we want to do this not just because we're trying to do this balancing act and maintain good finances. But no, we want to be aggressive. We want to get right back up as soon as we can. And we want to do what it takes, because to us, the championship hopefully is just a speed bump in our way to a much longer path that we're going on. So we want to be aggressive as we can be, which is probably going to require us being as creative as we can be as well.
All Leeds, aren't we? The official Leeds United podcast.
I'm presuming you'll still be very involved with the 49ers back in San Francisco. So what would you say finally there, just to people who might have a concern that you're spreading yourself too thin? What would you say to that? Like you personally?
I think, like I said a few minutes ago, the most important thing to me is hiring a really quality management team, executive staff, football staff, manager, and letting them do their job. If I did a good job at that and hired really great people, then my responsibility is simply to help write checks, to lend advice, to do daily phone calls or weekly phone calls and chats and Zooms with people. Of course, I'll be there much more frequently. But if I'm doing my job well, then people are just checking in with me, and I'm already in tune, in lockstep, in the flow of what's going on, not needing to jump in and come and do this or do that. And so hopefully I do my job well, where that's the most important thing for me, is hiring the people who are very good at their job.
Amazing. I'm sure the fans will be very thrilled to hear that. Okay, now I want to ask you about Leeds United. Where did this all come from? Why Leeds United was the option for 49ers Enterprises?
Yeah, we've been asked that question a lot, and why not go do this or go do that? And now, if Leeds wanted to take a top club, why not go at a Champions League club or something like that? I'll tell you, the root of it is this was almost maybe 10 years ago now, when we were looking at, all right, when we first decided we want to get involved in European football and kind of surveyed the landscape of what else is out there. The one uncut diamond that was out there that reminded me so much of what the 49ers were when I first started was Leeds United. Here was this great club with such historic success, and having won championships 40 years ago, again 30 years ago, and then obviously had fallen on hard times and multiple ownership groups ago through there. The 49ers were not that much different when I started in 2001. Had 5 Super Bowl trophies, but at the time we were playing in the oldest unrenovated stadium in the NFL, and we were struggling on and off the pitch. And we had to do a lot of work to get it back to where it is today, which is reminiscent of those glory days. And Leeds United just reminded me of that. And then you add some of the other pieces, which is that it is the only one club town. It is the biggest one club town, one of the biggest in all of Europe. And there's something special about that, where you go to London and your neighbor is an Arsenal fan, your doctor is a Chelsea fan, your wife might be a Tottenham fan, and you're something else. Like here, Leeds United is everybody's little brother and little sister. And I guess that's a blessing and a curse because of the profile that comes with it, but I love it. It's like that little brother that inside of the house and inside your household, you're going to pick on them, you're going to poke them, you're going to make fun of them, you're going to criticize them. Outside of the house, if anyone pokes fun of your little brother, you're going to protect them at all costs and do what it takes. And I love that. And so calling somebody even a supporter is kind of a misnomer. And even calling me a chairman or an owner is a misnomer, because we're all the same. I just happen to be the one carrying the torch at the moment. But there's just something special. There's something that there's something much more beautiful that's going to come when we cut this diamond and it becomes one of the brightest in the skies of European football.
Were you aware of Leeds United before the 49ers Enterprises began searching for a club?
Yeah, I was. Remember, I consumed sports for.
Right.
I didn't read a book. I didn't read a book for pleasure until I had to when I got to college, and even then, I used Cliff Notes as long as I could to get by. But the one book or the one thing I read front to back was Sports Page or Sports Almanacs or learning about different leagues. So I just love it. And so I love the competition. So I'd heard it. I had obviously known about Leeds. I played football from age 5, 6 growing up through college. And so I loved the sport. So yes, I had.
It's a thing that I'm always interested in because I live in Florida now, but having grown up in Leeds all my life, I'm always interested when I talk to people over here in the United States, and you do get a handful of people who have maybe played at college or whatever, and are students of the game, and they all know Leeds United, but there's that kind of that demographic that we wanted to hit, that were sort of just getting into Premier League, but weren't as well versed in maybe the history of football. And the last 3 years, obviously, we've started to attract their attention. Is that a big part of moving forward, what you want to do with Leeds? I mean, not just as a brand, but just as making us a household name in the United States as well as just in Europe?
Yeah, I think that's maybe a byproduct of it, because I think we have a big enough task and a fun enough task and a massive enough task in the UK and in Yorkshire itself. There's so much bigger. It's so much bigger that the club can be in the UK. And there's 2.4 million people in Yorkshire, and Leeds is the third largest city in the UK. There's so much opportunity already there. And sure, if a nice little byproduct is I get the opportunity to see folks wearing Tyler Adams jerseys around the Bay Area, that's going to be fantastic too. That's not the goal, though. The goal is to make it as special as it can be in the UK, and it's a movement. I think we all had a taste. We had a taste those 3 years that we were in the Premier League, and it was fleeting, and it sucked, and I hated the fact that we didn't get to stay in there. But one thing that it did show me is everyone talks about how Leeds belongs in the Premier League because it's a big club and all that, and that's true. But let's all not forget that to an equal degree, the Premier League needs Leeds. Because call it whatever you want, the way we play, the history, the tenacity by which we play, which is just different from some other clubs. The Premier League needs us. They know they need us. We need to be there and we belong, but they need us too, because we make the league that much special. Because, just coming back to what I said before, is there's something different about Leeds. It's a combination of a lot of things, but it's not any of these other clubs. And yes, a lot of those clubs have great success, better success than we have had, but we have something that they don't have. And there's a movement underneath the surface that I can just feel percolating. And I want to be a part of that movement. And I can't wait to see what it becomes in 5, 10, 15 years.
I want to focus on the future in a moment, and we can forget about what's come before. But you just seem to have really bought into the culture of Leeds United, and you say we and us, and you've already talking about the hands-on approach you enjoy. You've been here for years now, 5 years. Just how difficult's it actually been, sort of having to bite your lip at times and not being able to act on things that maybe you thought from this deep-rooted passion you clearly have. Just how tricky's that been? And then we'll move on from the past after that.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not going to lie to you. It's been very hard. I've not been one to I'm a pretty open, honest, direct person, and so I like to say what I mean and mean what I say. And so when I observe something or there's something that I think can be done a little bit better, it was challenging to bite my lip. And just, stay in my seat, so to speak, and watch the plane fly. And obviously there's times here and there where we could add advice, especially on the commercial side as we're looking to do certain things. But for the most part, the best way I could describe it was me taking notes. And I have multiple notebooks of notes now of how I would like to do things.
That's very, very interesting. And on that note, the future. So obviously the biggest decision probably that we had to make in a first team manager, Daniel Farke. Happy to get that appointment made?
Yeah, really happy. He's got a quiet confidence about him that is infectious, magnetic, where, you spend enough time with him around the room, you believe whatever he believes. Just because of the confidence by which he carries himself. That's a qualitative thing. The quantitative thing is he's been damn successful, right? He didn't just win the championship twice. He dominated the championship twice. He knows what it takes. He knows the grit. He knows the fight. He knows the blood, sweat, and tears it's going to take to get through the championship. And let me be clear: this isn't a short-term thing either. I don't think he had a fair deck of cards when he got back up to the Premier League, his two shots at it. And so that's one thing that we're going to rectify and give him the deck of cards that he needs to be successful once we get back up. Because I think he could be a very, very successful coach across Europe. This isn't just, hey, get us through the championship. He's got a style of play that I think resonates with our supporters, a style of play that I think are the players that we have. It fits the players that we have. He's been known to develop youngsters, and as you know, we've got a great crop of youngsters at the club through the academy as well. And so there's one thing, he's got a great empathy, which I appreciate. He's got a great understanding for the feelings of people and how the feelings of people, not just players, but coaches and staff and ownership, and how that all interacts to form a good chemistry of a team. And that's one thing that I found really important in American football in a head coach, was having that deep empathy and understanding. And I think he's really got that too.
Listening on together.
One of the things that I've just, from the fact that you've come onto the show today to talk to us, one of the things that I'm really interested in is the openness, trying to remove some of the more clandestine elements of backroom football. What's the interview process like when you're trying to get a new manager? And obviously, the relegation adds a whole new element, a new league, and in terms of the caliber of players you can bring in, adds a whole different perspective on that managerial appointment. I mean, what's that been like for the past few weeks?
Yeah, I think Daniel mentioned it a little bit in his media comments the other day, that it was a two-way interview. And that's a really fair assessment, because it wasn't just, okay, here's a club with great history, no doubt. Here's a club that was in the Premier League for 3 years and just got relegated. Here's a club that we're not exactly sure which players are staying and which players are going. Yeah. And oh, by the way, here's a club that we're not exactly done yet with who the owner and chairman's going to be. Right. So there's a lot of questions that candidates needed answering to as well. And some of it is still fluid. And so it was very much us talking about our vision, and me talking about my vision and where we are today, but where I think we're going and what steps we are going to invest and take to be able to get there. And then it was obviously hearing from the candidates. And so I think, I've got a lot of experience with this in hiring coaches and general managers at the 49ers, along with our club owner there. And I think, one of the great lessons I've learned is tactically, of course, those things are important. And we had people there in our interview process that were more attuned to the sort of tactical elements of coaching football. But what I was looking for was much deeper than that, was a little more meta than that. What I was looking for were things like, leadership and empathy and confidence and level of detail, meticulousness, ability to inspire, those type of things that differentiate a great leader or a great manager from a good manager. Those are the things that I'm looking for and interviewing for. And to me, Daniel checked all those boxes.
Well, you talked a moment ago about obviously supporting him if and when we get promoted, but that's in the future. Right now, we're aware that the championship is our focus, and that can only be our focus. So what are the plans and ambitions for the club in this short-term promotion drive, and how are you gonna back Daniel in this window?
Yeah, the short-term plans is really to put as competitive of a squad together on the pitch that we can. Obviously governed by some of the rules of the EFL and what we're able to do and not able to do, but we want to go as strong as possible. And yes, there's a history of odds with bounce back clubs and things like that, but we also want to double down with having a very high quality squad as well, as best we can, to keep as many guys as we can. To be able to bounce back up. So, I want to give him all the resources that he needs off the pitch, but also try to maximize the resources that we can keep on the pitch.
Are we confident of trying to keep a few of our sort of players that had performed well last season?
We're trying to. We're doing our best.
Right. And so you mentioned earlier with regard to Levi's Stadium, the 49ers Stadium, that when you first got involved with San Francisco, they were in a dilapidated ground that needed a lot of work. And now I've been to Levis Stadium. It's a beautiful, state-of-the-art, incredible match day experience. Is the ground something you guys are focused on as well?
Yes, we do. We'll be talking about it in short order, but we do still want to go forward with the stadium expansion plans. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes over the last 8 months on it. We'll in due time share more details. I think the biggest thing the most important thing that I'll share though is that we don't want to take away from the magic that is Elland Road. We don't want to take away from. There's a particular menacing atmosphere there. And that raises the hair on the back of your neck when you go in, whether you're an away fan or a home supporter, and you don't want to take away from that.
How was that when you first experienced it?
I loved it. I forgot that I was an investor and vice chairman and whatever. I was a fan and I loved it. The only thing I hated was sitting down. And so it's just like, there's something about that you don't want to take away. It is I guess the only thing I'll say, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, is that a club's stadium is a temple. It is religious. You don't want to take that away from a team, from its supporters or anything. It's a temple. And so even everything that we want to do, we want to expand the stadium, but we don't want to take away from the authenticity of that temple.
You've obviously mentioned the academy, which is going to play a huge role this season, no doubt. But Leeds being a real community club, I want to just ask a quick question about the women's teams. Are you still hoping to focus very much on that side of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the growth in the women's game, or the really big growth in the women's game, is still to come. The level of talent and the competitiveness of the women's leagues is really tremendous. We've got a good squad. You see what's happening. There's a groundswell happening in the U.S. already with the NWSL, and how popular that has become and where it's going. And I think the same can be said over here. And so absolutely, both the academy and the women's clubs are very much a part of the fabric of what we want to build. Because like I said, the movement is all of Leeds. It's not just the first team, men's. It's the movement is everything that this club is about, the essence of all of those things combined.
Well, I can only thank you for coming on today, Paraag. I think that's been incredibly interesting. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you and sort of getting an insight into your way of thinking. I would just like to ask you one last question: is do you have anything to say to the fans? We're coming into this new season. It's been a difficult few years, but it's a new dawn now in many ways. So I would like to give you the floor and say, what would you like to say to all the fans?
That's a good one. I haven't thought about this. So I'm going to just riff here and we could decide
Excellent.
later.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
I think it's, I share supporters' passion for this club. I share the excitement. One of my best moments in all of sports, in my multiple decades in sports, was the moment we got promoted. And even though it was in the middle of COVID, I was running around the streets of my neighborhood. Made myself, I won't say what drink I made, but I made myself a few drinks and we're just running around the streets and enjoying myself. It was a beautiful moment. I also share the same frustrations. I share the same frustrations of why did this happen, or why didn't we do that, or how could we let this happen, and this happened too soon, or we didn't do this took too long. I share all those same frustrations. Just know that I come at this with all of my experience to bear, both as a fan and with my football and my commercial experience, to do the best job that I can to get this club right. And yeah, I'm going to make some mistakes, but I'm also going to get a lot of things right. But I'm a supporter first and foremost, and I just happen to be, I think I happen to be a chairman with a little bit more of a different background, and I'm going to apply that background, and do the best I can to get this club back and make this club a club that we're all proud of, myself included. And yeah, we're going to still be critical and we're still going to be frustrated at times, but, more often than not, I'm confident we're going to build something that we're all going to be proud to pass on to our kids and our kids' kids.
I thank you so much for your time and for your openness. I'm looking very much forward to this season and the plans that you guys have for it. I'll let you get back to what I imagine is a very busy schedule for the new season. So thank you again, Paraag.
No problem.
That is very, very kind. Ladies and gentlemen, Leeds United's new chairman, Paraag Marathe. Thank you so much.
This is the official Leeds United podcast.